All right, as the treasurer, I'm calling the International Falls Economic Development Authority to order. First point of order is to do roll call. The vice president is currently absent, and we do not have a current president. We do have a new acting member, which is Commissioner Kraus. First order of business on today's agenda is going to be to appoint president. As I spoke with the mayor before this meeting, the appointment for president would last through December of this year. There will be a new board nominated in January. So at this time, I would take nominations for president.
Well, you know, there's only 2 people sitting here that will be here next time. Oh, well, maybe you, but could be. I don't know. 3.
Well, there is a new board that will be elected in January. So we need a president to act through the end of the year.
Why can't it be you?
Because I'm the treasurer. It could be me, but I am the treasurer. So if I was to be elected treasurer, I would have to resign, or elected president, I would have to resign as treasurer, and then we'd have to elect a treasurer. So let's just bypass the middleman and elect a president.
All right. Well, I think it's a lot to put on a brand new member of the EDA to be president. So I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to nominate. You'd be excellent, but I want to give you a chance here. It's your first meeting. So I would nominate Mayor Anderson for president.
Do you accept?
I'll accept.
So we have a motion for Commissioner Anderson to be the president of the EDA. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other nominations for officers?
Do we have any others?
Nope.
Okay.
Hearing no more nominations, all those in favor of Commissioner Anderson as our new president, state by saying aye.
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 All opposed?
Abstain.
Motion carries. I will hand over the figurative gavel. It is your meeting.
Well done.
Thank you. This will likely be our last meeting of the year, or do we have one in December? So
We probably will need one to, don't have to have one actually, it's January, we do it early now, so the next one would be in January.
all right, thank you. Approval of the minutes of the July 16th.
Moved.
Motion by Councilor Jackson, Commissioner Jackson. Second by Commissioner Kraus. Discussion? Question?
Aye.
Aye.
I vote yes, motion is carried, and the minutes are approved. And then we have the special meeting of September 26th. Motion by Commissioner Kraus,
Second.
by Commissioner Jackson. Discussion?
I have a question. Not to disrespect Commissioner Kraus, but I don't think he actually was on the board at that point. We didn't have him sworn in. Does that matter for the information?
No, as long as he's a legal member of the commission or the authority, he can take it. He can vote and approve.
Oh no, I was going with commissioners present and Joe Kraus.
Oh, the September 26th shows. Oh, I see. You're asking.
You're right, I was not sworn in at that point.
He was not present at
Correcting the minute.
Correcting the minutes.
correcting the minutes.
Well, I think it should be corrected. Did I approve those minutes?
No,
We're on them right now.
Councilor Kraus made the motion and you seconded, and so the minutes would be amended to strike and Joe Kraus from the commissioners present.
I accept that as a correction to my motion.
So the Oxford comma in there would remove me as a commissioner. I'm just throwing that in there. Matter of grammar. The Oxford comma removes me as a commissioner. If you put the and, then it deletes me as a commissioner. But since it's under commissioners present, I would agree with that.
Further discussion with regard to the minutes of the special meeting of September 26th? Question?
Aye.
Yes, motion is carried. Minutes approved as amended. Thank you. Anyone in the audience that wishes to approach the International Falls Economic Development Authority at this time? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move to the accounts payable, financial reports. There are no accounts payable.
Okay.
And the financial reports show that there are
Balance sheet balances.
Yes.
Very good.
Pleasure with the financial reports.
As treasurer, I will move the financial reports.
Motion by Commissioner Droba to approve the financial reports for the EDA Fund 208 and Multimodal District Fund 404. Second by Commissioner Jacksaw. Discussion? Question?
Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion is carried. Financial reports are approved. Item number 7, Couchiching County Housing Study Draft Report. Commissioner Jacksaw and City Administrator Anderson were in attendance at the presentation of the draft report by the consultant. I would open it to both of you for comments, please.
Here it is. How much did this cost? $5,000?
It cost the city $6,000, about $35,000 I think for total cost. President Anderson, I was just I put this on the agenda just because I knew that the presentation of the draft report was going to occur today, and the Housing Collaborative met at 11 this morning and actually went till almost 1 o'clock reviewing the draft report. And written text that he had, there's going to be a separate report for each city in the county, but he went through International Falls report, and it was, I thought it was educational and had an abundance of demographic and housing data and income data in there. And then he had a number of recommendations. I think it was the number 24. I'm trying to remember for 26 for International Falls alone. So part of the reason why I also put it on the agenda is with Commissioner Kraus being new and not necessarily having all the background about the housing study. I just thought it would be an opportunity to talk about it and share whatever information any of you thought was important for him to know as we go forward. So the next steps is for everybody in the Housing Collaborative to probably review the report in depth and then offer any suggestions for edits or comments or additions or perhaps omissions. And then when he finalizes it, then he'll do as many presentations as the collaborative thinks is necessary in the county. And I think it up in this area and perhaps another one further south in the county, but he's open to whatever will require.
I thought that some of the recommendations I hadn't thought of. I thought some of them, the purchase rehab program was, we have a need to act. And I guess the data in here, the information that comes forward is that we need tax base in terms of housing. And there is a shortage of rental housing. Our vacancy rate is low. And we haven't had new rental housing built since the 1980s, if you don't include the nursing home. And so our rental housing is old, 40 years old, most of it. So the one interesting, we didn't really do have some movement of immigration into the city, And much of it is, this is anecdotal, I guess, because they didn't give us a target market of who's making the purchases of housing in the city right now. But just listening to people, one of them was Bob Markart. He said, he's an example, he moved back here, purchased a home on the lake. He said there's some of that movement where people come home after they retire and they move up here permanently. Another element is because we have, and you're an example, right? Exactly. So, and then another element that I've heard about, and I think it's interesting, is that because we have low-cost housing here, our median home price is $78,000. That won't even get you a closet in some cities, right? Let alone a house. That we have people considering moving here and have moved here who maybe live in Minneapolis and they've rented all their lives and they're now retiring and they see moving here as an opportunity to purchase a home in their retirement. And so we're getting some of that too. So, you know, it's nice to understand who we're attractive to and why they're moving here, because then we can better capitalize on that. You know? So senior housing is an important, and we're talking about seniors here pretty much.
And I would add one thing that I took away from the presentation was that if we were to do a project or projects in the community to try and jumpstart some upgrade to our housing stock, and it could be multifamily rental, it could be owner occupied, is that what a lot of communities have to do is they actually engage anywhere from 10 to 12 different funding sources through grants, low interest loans and other things to just try and make projects cost effective to be able to do, because the cost of construction is high, and in order to meet the affordability thresholds, so you really need to bring in numerous revenue sources and financial assistance programs to make these projects attractive to a developer to move forward on. And so that was one of the takeaways I had from his presentation, and recognized and said that, you know, these are challenges, but they're not challenges that can't be overcome.
Cities have done that successfully, and he did send out an email to you with a video of some projects that have been accomplished.
Forward, Isaac from Kutask had forwarded something to me, and I haven't looked at it yet, but I thought it was a report. I didn't know it was a video, but I haven't opened it yet, so.
I thought it was a video, I mean.
Okay.
Maybe you're right.
I could have missed.
Yeah, he said, Steve said today 1,000 square feet today is $145,000 to build new, on average. So if the median price is $78,000, it's hard to build. And in fact, we've only had 7 new homes in 7 years within the city limits.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, he was one of them.
Burning your house down.
I was surprised by the, I thought the need would have shown greater. I think the numbers were like for senior housing with 14 to 16, and I just expected that to be maybe closer to twice that there might be 20 to 30 people that would be looking for senior housing. And so I'm just a little bit questioning of some of the numbers, and he cited a lot of vacancies at the present facilities that we have now for that all had vacancies, and then the other thing that was somewhat bothersome was that some folks are spending more than 30% of their income to afford a house or afford a place to live, and that is concerning. And our average, the demographic, some of the demographic information really very helpful to know, because our average salaries or income levels are not that great here anymore. Oh, we still have, 600 jobs at the paper mill and United Healthcare and other challenges.
I haven't seen the study, but I'm well, obviously, in my professional life. But one thing that I've noticed is serving on hiring committees for our company, in my private sector life, is lack of quality rental apartments, we'll say, not almost a condo would be the word. We've had plenty of qualified applicants that would be more than willing to move here until they look for a place to live, and they slam the brakes on every time. We've lost, I can't tell you how many quality, and we're talking, these are positions that are paying 70 plus a year, so they can afford a decent place to live, and they can't find it. They can't find it. They don't want to rent a house. They don't want to rent it because they don't want to shovel. And I'm talking people from out of state, so we're growing the base. People that have heard that the winters are horrible and they don't want to shovel, and that we get this, that, or the other, and we fly them up, we interview them, and we offer them a job, and they go to look for a house, and later that afternoon we get a call, thanks for the offer, but I'm not interested, can't find anywhere to live. Thanks for flying me up here. So it's frustrating. It's exceptionally frustrating that they can't find and it's not so much that, I'm not saying that the places aren't nice, but you said it, we haven't built a new apartment building since the 80s. You can't go to any town, go to any of the range cities or anywhere else, and there's new apartment complexes springing up everywhere, and we haven't had one since the 80s, and that's what we're missing. That's what we're missing, in my opinion on the matter. And it's difficult to try and recruit people. We would hire 2 more full-time therapists if we could get somebody to accept the job. It's not for a lack of applicants, they don't want to live, they don't want to rent a house, and they don't want to live in an apartment building that's older than they are. They want something newer. Offer it, and it's difficult.
The question is, with regard, and I realize this is just the draft, and so is council interested in getting a copy of this to review? I don't know, make some copies at least for the commissioners on the EDA. Maybe some department heads might just want to take and have a piece.
Sure, I can scan it and send it out and ask for comments to get back to them, relatively soon. So
I'm not even so concerned that they would maybe come back and make edits, but that they would just have that information piece, because I think probably 95% or 98% of it's going to be the same in the final, but just to get that information out to folks. I know it's heavy bedtime reading, but it's...
Actually, it's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of good information there. I thought the 2 hours went by awful fast this morning, listening to his presentation.
I think if you have cold feet on that number of seniors demanding, I think we better bring that up.
Yeah.
And ask about the methodology they used anyway, so you can be assured.
I've just had a number of seniors say, I would like to do this, and I think the kind of condo living or nice apartment
Condo
living.
with a maintenance plan. That's what
Yes,
I want.
that's right, and you're not alone. I think that I've heard that.
The thing is, the city's commercial and housing building committee, they'll be getting a copy of this from me, and we'll be meeting, because whatever we do, it's going to take, people putting their shoulder to the wheel here and work on the angles to get the funding. And I think the question is, Ken raised it, was we have many questions before us, but when you come to how we're going to approach the problem, yes, is it better to do a scattered approach and put different units throughout the city, or is it better to take a relatively empty block where we've torn down a lot of old houses and do a major project just within that one area? So, there's how do we solve the problem? How do we approach the problem? We're not going to be able to solve the entire problem, but we can light some candles. And what's the most effective way of doing that?
That'll come up at the Housing Issues Advisory Council meeting tomorrow at Kutaska,
Yeah,
which I'll be attending.
I'll be there too, but.
You know, I'm thinking of the block between 5th and 6th Avenue, no, 4th and 5th Avenue, where there's the condos on each side on 5th Street. And those have got to be 70 or 80 years old.
There's only one bathroom on the second floor. That's how old they are.
That's how old they are, yeah. But those never seem to not be filled. They never, I mean, the for sale signs don't seem to be out there for very long, and they sell. So
Beautiful building. On the outside anyway, I've never been in.
A bathroom, only one bathroom on the second floor would be a model for me.
Is that per unit or for the whole building?
No, per unit.
I think there's 4 units or 5 units on each side. I guess I would, I'd like to also introduce the question of incentives. And should a community, should a city try to provide incentives to contractors, to others to build?
My answer is yes, if you're asking for an opinion. I think we need to do something. I mean, that's what Stephen was saying today, is that to get this done, if it costs $145,000 to 1,000 square foot, we're not going to get anything done unless we have incentives.
I would note that in a meeting I was in this spring, it came up, Koochiching County is one of only 8 counties in the entire state that doesn't participate in the Bridges program. So,
I'm not familiar with the Bridges program.
It's a state grant program for building and maintaining affordable housing. We're one of only 8. It's like us and Aiken County, and I can't remember the others. Didn't really need it.
Virginia's big in that program.
Yes, we don't have it. It just never have.
What's that about again?
It's a state grant program that it's privately run. So you would have a private firm, say like Tees and Tally, for example, that runs like Hampton Court. They actually run some of them in the Virginia area that would run these, but they're state subsidized, and the state subsidizes construction and everything, and we just never, to the best of my knowledge, and this was a statewide meeting, we've just never even pursued it.
And are cities eligible to be in that?
These counties, tribes, any municipality, yeah.
I think there's a tax that goes into that. When we were doing a survey of tools in our toolbox for the housing committee that we have at the city, I had an entire list of all the different tools, and one of them. But I think that requires a tax from the HRA.
But you've got to find a contractor or somebody willing to run with it. The city doesn't own the...
Well, one of the things we don't do here is we don't take advantage. We do have levy authority. Of course, we won't talk about that with the sales tax, but we do have levy authority through the HRA.
Both.
Well, the housing authority is...
Isn't the HRA like...
No.
That's the county. What else in the city?
We have a city HR. Operates the Woodland Park Apartments.
But they're pretty much focused on that, but could be broader.
That's all they're focused on.
Yeah.
All right. Further on the housing study at this point? Thank you. We'll go to the director's report, and could you give us an update on the industrial park?
Thank you, Mayor. I just included, again, partially for reasons with having Commissioner Kraus being new here, is I know that Commissioners or President Anderson and Commissioner Roba are on KEDA, and KEDA's been working after acquiring a tax forfeit property from the county on creating an industrial park in the area of 22nd Street. This is an aerial photo, and you see the green area in the center there. It's horseshoe shaped, and that's property that KEDA owns, and so they're contemplating how to develop that area to create more lots within that industrial park. And so we've been meeting at a staff level with Matt Gwynn from the county, who is here tonight, and he's been more of a technical resource for Paul Nevin and KEDA to look at how should this property be subdivided and then made available for future development. And so we've looked at how to make road connections and utility connections. At some point, Kita's going to be moving forward.
Plat,
Yep.
adding this out?
So is this, the fishery is on highway, off of highway?
It's in the center of this, so where you see that.
Oh, the
Dark,
fishery.
real black place?
Oh, okay,
Those
now
three
I know
lots,
what
it's my
we're talking
understanding
about.
the 3 lots in the middle there are privately owned though, correct? Yeah.
Two of them.
Yeah.
One of them is,
Sold it to them, that's why, right?
yes.
Because there's a business that's going to go in the one on the northwest.
The real brown, light brown area?
Putting a building there. I'm familiar with the situation.
So this is just
Working with the
enough.
property owner, and he's, talked about building for a while now, but he does have some plans now, so.
Is that in in our opportunity zone?
Yes.
Ah.
I think it is.
Bingo, good. Okay.
It's my understanding that the aggregate and everything is done. It's just a matter of permitting and putting up the building.
Yep, well, he needs to submit what he needs to. Really been a couple weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Plan, and so we need to make sure it meets setbacks and other type of things, and, but standards and everything else, so but there's been some movement there.
I was just looking at Monday's KEDA agenda, and again, we rescheduled the tour of the business park for next Monday at 1:30, 1:45-ish, and I think at that point, he was going to point out what the prospective lots were going to be in the plat, so.
A whole host of issues, and probably more detail than we need to get into right now. Second Avenue East there, and preserve or protect the county's interest there, and then we looked at trying to have a looped road system, and so they looked at a horseshoe type design that would come off of Highway 53 on the south end of the property and then tie into the existing road that dead ends on 22nd Street. That was another option that was looked at, and then I believe 22nd Street has a water main in it that we want to continue east to try and loop, so a number of issues that we would look at, and I guess from a financing or from a financial standpoint, as if that road was going to be upgraded and improved with curb and gutter and bituminous servicing, then this have some obligations to do the budget situation. We need to kind of contemplate those future projects to make sure we have sufficient funds set aside, because I don't know that they are now.
So who ultimately gets to decide on the plating? I mean, it's in the city limits of International Falls, and you ended up saying the county's concerns on the horseshoe. And I know what the county's concerns are. I've talked to a handful of people on Second Avenue East on not wanting to have it right up against the highway. But who ultimately is in charge of doing the plating for that?
Well, the applicant would be KEDA, I believe, because they're the property owner, and then the Planning Commission would have a public hearing for the preliminary. So ultimately, the city council is the plat process, and then a subsequent final plat. What I've done in other communities is we've done them simultaneously, actually, just in time. And it kind of depends on the specific facts for each application as to whether or not that makes sense and what the needs are and what's best for timing. But it makes sense to wait and do the final plat process after it goes through the whole process. But if it's fairly straightforward, so the city's the ultimate approving authority because it is in the city.
It just seems to me that, based off of the information that I've heard on that, the goal is, as you said, to have a buffer zone of tree line on 2nd Avenue East. it's a residential area. It doesn't seem to make, west side of the street is a residential area, and they're looking at making the other side commercial in some capacity, and I understand having a slight buffer, but I don't know, I just, my point is I'd like to see what they finalize before we move forward, but I just think that it doesn't make sense to how the city's already being built out over there. That's just my thoughts, but I'd like to see what the final thing is, so.
Final plat.
The final plat and what they've decided. I've seen a couple of preliminaries of what they're proposing, but I'd like to wait to see what the final is.
And approach that some communities take, and I think we've been doing it informally here, is just going through a concept plan review where you spend a lot of money on detailed engineering and survey information. How big are the lots going to be? How are they going to be configured? Where do you see the going to be in the sizes and stuff? And you review that on a concept basis, and then you can provide some definition about what's an absolute no-go from the city standpoint, what would be acceptable. You have a little bit of negotiation or give up what seems appropriate, and then they can get into the design work and go through the preliminary approval process. And having already gone through the concept stage and running through the planning commission and then the city council, in this case, as a property owner, is going to know what the city is acceptable to the city and what isn't. Not have to expend a lot of money up front and then.
And as with all property in International Falls, some percentage of this is wetlands.
Yes.
We have wetland credits, right?
That would need to be mitigated.
How many credits do we have sitting in our little bank? 13?
5, but I don't know what the number is right.
Never secured any from the Miggins property as of
That
yet.
was a 13, I thought.
No, that was, we had started out expecting 35, and now it's down to 23 or something is what
It's
they're.
never been finalized.
Right.
What's holding it up?
Army Corps, I believe.
Of course. What a stupid question. Oh,
There are no stupid questions.
I forgot about the art. It's been a while since we beat our heads against the wall on that.
All right. Enough on the industrial park. How about the population changes in northeast Minnesota that you've included?
Well, Mayor, I'm sorry, Mr. President, what I've normally done is, when I review different kinds of information, economic development consideration, and so the first one, population changes in northeast Minnesota that DEED put out. This is dated July of 2018, and you can see the Northeast Minnesota lost 0.4%. Numerically, that was 1,311 people. The only other one that lost people was Southwest Minnesota. The average for the state of Minnesota was a 5.1% gain. So there's specific details in here that talk about out-migration, in-migration on the subsequent pages here, and it's broken out by county. And you can see that County and St. Louis County, Coochin County lost 516 people with, I guess I'm looking at domestic net migration, and St. Louis County was basically double that number, but St. Louis County's population is considerably larger than Coochin County's 12,528. There's over 200,000 in the 2017 estimate.
I'd like to make a comment here. That with our political environment and the tax cuts, et cetera, that's going to filter down to less support, government support for the city of International Falls. We saw that when Pawlenty was governor, and we did a 17% property tax increase in the city because he unallotted LGA, because of the budget deficit, because of the tax cuts, right? So it's all connected. we're going to be looking at pinched government, and I just remind everybody that LGA is twice our levy. So 2/3 of our general fund money comes from the state. It comes from income taxes and sales tax. And so if you cut those things, you cut off the funding stream for international flows. So therefore, I do not support tax cuts because I care about the city. And as a city official who's concerned about the financial stability of city finances, I cannot support income tax cuts. Just, I'm saying, because it's all connected.
I think the final point, again, from an Economic Development Authority perspective, is in Table 4, it shows labor force projections in the years 2020 to 2030, and for all of the northeast Minnesota region, they're projecting a 5.7% reduction in the total labor force, and I would guess from a percentage factor that we're probably looking at a higher number for that just in King County, but again, prospects for future employees and trying to attract or recruit new businesses here. You know, labor force is important. That just for your information. Positive information, but.
Well, and I think on that first page, the table that you showed us there, with the Twin Cities having an 8% increase in population, and an average for the state of Minnesota of 5.1, really no area of the state is keeping up with the Twin Cities or even the average. So every area is going down. The northeast and the southwest are going down more. I'm not sure I understand how northwest Minnesota is growing except for Thief River Falls and the businesses over there. I think that's why they're growing. DigiKey and Polaris and Arctic Cat, I think, are growing, and that's why Northwest has a 2.2%. But
Is Moorhead in that area?
I'm not sure where the dividing line is, but I think you could be right.
I would assume Grand Forks would be.
Grand Forks would be on
Yeah, and
ours.
that's growing.
But on the second page, going to my point about federal tax policy and policies,
That's the next subject, yep.
that's been a negative, it's going to hit us. It's
Credit
gonna
rating
be bad.
agency report. Want to touch on that, City Administrator?
Again, another report from one of the credit agencies. I think I pulled this off of, it was online, and the point is that the demographic and economic trends are showing increased pressures on the finances in local government, rural America, and Moody's Investor Service, which most people are familiar with. It just shows that the employment in rural counties is down from 2007 levels, and urban counties it's going up, and so jobs now than there were 10 years ago, and again, it's just a prospect that we need to consider when we're making efforts to rehabilitate our housing stock, attract labor force, and then either help our existing businesses expand or to try and recruit other businesses. Directors are going to make for their businesses, and it's at a surplus of skilled labor, you're going to be at the top of anybody's short list.
Have we seen any bond issues where the interest rate in rural Minnesota or rural America have been higher than in metro areas?
There's a number of factors that get into whether or not, or what the interest rate is that a bond issue would attract, but it goes to the financial capital improvement planning and economic climate in the area, so all of those are factors in it. But right now, fortunately, the interest rate from a historical perspective, but they are inching up, and I've heard I think from the analysis that our financial advisors had done, right now on a 15-year bond issue, the bond interest rate was around 3.2%. For tax exempt.
Well, the city, and good work by elected officials and administrative, we have not had any bonded indebtedness in this city for 30 or 40 years. And maybe that's a good thing and maybe it's a bad thing because you don't have a credit rating probably for many of the look at either.
When interest rates are low and you have a need, I would say that, pretty simple to say that it's probably a smart move to borrow money, but, you know, I mean, I would personally. People do that. They borrow money and leverage it, so, you know.
I'm not sure cities can do that.
No, I'm not suggesting we do that.
Leveraging.
I'm not suggesting
There's a
we
term
do
for that.
It's called leverage.
No, there's something else. Anyway.
Well, anyway, I'm just saying that it is smart to borrow money at the right time for the right purpose.
All right, further business to come before the International Falls Economic Development Authority. Hearing none, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.